Take a quick pause. Did you know that over 90% of you watching haven't hit the subscribe button yet? If you're enjoying this video, take a second to subscribe and hit the like button. It helps us bring you more gripping stories every day. Also, we'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments so we can see how far our stories are reaching. Your support really keeps us going. Now, let's jump back into the video. If I close my eyes long enough, I can still hear her laughter echoing through the hallway. Software. Playful. Alive. It's strange, isn't it? How life can feel like a perfect painting, beautiful, untouched, until someone spills ink across the canvas and you can never clean it off. 3 years ago, my life was exactly how I dreamed it would be. I had a stable job, a home that finally felt like more than four walls, and Emma, my wife, my world, was 7 months pregnant with our first child. We had names picked out, nursery colors debated in warm whispers over late night tea, and dreams that stretched far beyond the confines of our little living room. I remember the way her fingers used to trace circles on her belly while she talked to our daughter like she was already here. I used to watch her do it when she thought I was asleep, and I'd smile into the darkness, silently thanking the universe for this peace. And then it shattered. Emma worked at a local manufacturing plant, mostly overseeing logistics. It was supposed to be safe. Desk job, climate controlled, nothing physically demanding. But that morning, someone decided to skip protocol. They left a faulty crate stacked too high, unsecured. And when Emma passed beneath it, they told me she didn't suffer, that it was instant, that even the baby wouldn't have made it. I stood there in the sterile hallway of the hospital, surrounded by beeping machines and the scent of antiseptic. And all I could think about was that she had packed an apple and a peanut butter sandwich that morning, humming a lullaby as she brushed her hair. That was the moment the ink spilled across my painting. The weeks that followed blurred into each other. I don't remember the funeral. I don't remember who held my hand or whispered hollow condolences. I remember the silence, though, the kind that settles deep in your bones, the kind that doesn't just fill the room, it becomes the room. I stopped going to work. I stopped eating mostly. There were days I didn't speak to another human being. Nights were worse. Every creak in the house felt like her coming back to me, and every silence reminded me she never would. Grief is a strange companion. It doesn't knock on your door and ask to come in. It kicks it down and sets up camp in your chest. Some days it lets you breathe. Most days it doesn't. Months passed, maybe a year. I'm not even sure anymore. And then came Lila. She was light. The kind of person who walks into a room and makes you forget why you were sad in the first place. I met her at a small bookstore Emma used to love. She noticed me staring at a poetry section, frozen by the memories, and just started talking. I didn't want to let anyone in, not again. But Lila didn't force her way in. She just stayed nearby, patient. She listened. She didn't try to fix me. And maybe that's why I let her into my life. Slowly, I started breathing again, laughing even sometimes. I found myself reaching for things I'd buried: music, coffee in the morning, the sunrise. Lila was there through all of it, always just close enough to lean on, never too close to drown in. And then there was Mark. He'd been my friend since college, the kind of guy who helped you move furniture without being asked. He was there after Emma died, bringing food, checking in on me, helping me sell her car when I couldn't face it alone. He was one of the few people who saw me unravel and didn't look away. When I introduced Lila to Mark, something in me hesitated. Not because I distrusted either of them, but because happiness, after so much darkness, felt fragile. Like if you touched it too hard, it might disappear. Still, they got along well. Maybe too well. It started small. Little things. I'd call Lila and she'd be distant. Mark would cancel on me last minute more often than not. Once I stopped by Lila's place unannounced and she wasn't home. She said she was visiting her sister out of town. Mark was also suddenly busy that weekend. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid one who starts seeing shadows where there are none. But there's a certain instinct that grief sharpens, a sixth sense for when things start to slip. One night, I couldn't sleep. The memories were too loud, and I found myself scrolling through old messages, looking for comfort in nostalgia. I opened a shared folder from a hiking trip years ago. Mark, me, and Emma. Photos of smiles and burned marshmallows and tents pitched on uneven ground. And there, buried between the photos, was a new image, dated just 3 weeks ago. It was a selfie. Lila and Mark, sitting on what looked like a cabin porch. Her head rested on his shoulder. His hand was on her knee. They looked happy. Too happy. I stared at it for a long time, my heart beating in slow, painful thuds. Then I checked the metadata. Location tags don't lie. They were at a cabin I had recommended to both of them months ago, one Emma and I used to escape to in the fall. They hadn't just gone behind my back. They'd taken what was once mine and made it theirs. I didn't confront them, not yet. I needed time. Not to forgive, but to plan. There's something unsettling about calm fury, the kind that doesn't scream or cry. It waits, patient, focused. I began documenting everything, calls, texts, dates. I watched as they kept up the charade, pretending to care, to love me. But I was already gone. The man they thought they were fooling no longer existed. I buried him next to Emma. The man who rose in his place had one purpose, and he never forgot how betrayal feels when you've already lost everything. In the days that followed, I learned just how convincing people can be when they think you're blind. Lila still called me every night, still asked about my day with the same soft voice that used to bring me peace. Mark sent me memes and inside jokes, like we were still those 20-something guys who thought friendship was forever. They both played their roles so well, I almost wanted to believe I had imagined everything. Almost. But the truth doesn't unsee itself. Once it's in, it festers. And I let it. I became quiet, observant. I stopped asking questions and started giving them room to lie. I smiled when Lila talked about her weekend plans, nodded when Mark claimed to be busy helping his sister move. I even encouraged them to take time for themselves, subtly pushing them closer while I watched from the shadows of their deceit. You'd be surprised how quickly people slip when they think you trust them. One Friday evening, Lila told me she had a late work meeting, some charity event she was helping organize. She wore a new dress. Her smile was too polished, her perfume too strong. I told her she looked beautiful, kissed her forehead like nothing had changed, and watched her walk out the door. 10 minutes later, I was in my car. I knew where she'd be. The cabin was 3 hours out, nestled deep in the woods. Isolated, quiet, the kind of place where no one asks questions because no one's around to hear the answers. I arrived just past midnight. Her car was already there, so was Mark's. I didn't approach, I didn't knock. I sat in the darkness, engine off, windows down, listening to the sounds of a forest that didn't know it was bearing witness. And I waited. The next morning, they came out together, laughing. She wore one of his sweatshirts. They kissed. And just like that, something inside me finally broke. Not in a loud, crashing way. Not like glass shattering. It was quieter than that. Like the sound of a door closing somewhere deep in your heart. I drove back before they saw me. I needed to be ready. Not just emotionally, but strategically. See, revenge isn't about anger. Not the kind I wanted. It's about control, precision, making sure that the people who tried to burn you realized too late that they never held the match. The next few weeks were spent constructing the kind of plan that couldn't be traced back to me. I didn't want to hurt them, at least not in the way most people imagine. I wanted them to hurt themselves. Mark worked in finance. Lila did freelance event coordination for high-end clients. Both of them relied heavily on trust, reputation, and keeping up appearances. So I became the ghost in their machines. I created a new online identity, nothing flashy, just subtle enough to pass unnoticed. I used burner accounts, fabricated evidence, a few planted messages, a rumor whispered into the right inbox. Some confidential documents, never published, just seen. Enough to raise suspicion, not alarms. Within a month, one of Mark's clients pulled out. Another flagged him for internal review. He didn't understand why. I made sure of that. Lila started receiving anonymous messages. About Mark, about me, about someone she thought she could trust. Photos of them at the cabin, carefully edited screenshots of messages Mark never sent, but that sounded just like him. Enough to plant doubt, enough to make her wonder. But it wasn't enough. I needed them to turn on each other. So I got closer again. I let Lila see glimpses of the man she once comforted, the broken one, the lonely one. I let her believe I was healing, that maybe, just maybe, we still had a future. And when she came back, slowly, cautiously, I welcomed her with open arms. She started spending more nights at my place. Her laughter returned, but it was different now. Tense. Guilty. I never mentioned Mark. Neither did she. One night, as she sat on the couch flipping through a movie list, I asked her something simple. Do you ever think about fate? She glanced over, confused. What do you mean? I mean, do you think people are meant to be together? Or do we just make choices and call them destiny? She didn't answer. She just reached for my hand and held it like she was afraid I'd let go. 2 days later, Mark showed up at my door. He looked tired, angry, confused. Can we talk? He asked, eyes shifting between mine and the window where Lila's jacket hung. I nodded and stepped aside. We sat across from each other like strangers who remembered being friends. He rubbed his hands together, leaning forward. Something's going on. My clients are dropping, someone's feeding them lies, and I don't know who or why. I watched him quietly, letting the silence stretch. I thought maybe you... He hesitated. I don't know, maybe you heard something? I shook my head slowly. I've been focused on getting better. I haven't really kept up with anyone. He looked at me, searching for something. Maybe the truth, maybe guilt. But I gave him neither. Before he left, he paused at the door. Lila's acting different. I shrugged. Maybe she's just tired. He nodded, but he didn't believe it. He looked like a man beginning to realize the walls around him were made of paper, and someone had lit a match. The final move came the following week. I invited them both over. Lila thought we were celebrating my recovery. Mark thought I needed advice on investing in a small property. Neither of them knew the other was coming. They arrived 10 minutes apart. The tension hit the room like a thunderclap. They tried to play it off. Small talk, weak smiles, but you could see it in their eyes. The unraveling. I poured them drinks, then excused myself to the kitchen. And I watched. Not through cameras, not through walls. I watched them through the reflection in a framed photo of Emma and me. One I had placed carefully on the bookshelf. It didn't take long. You told me you weren't seeing him anymore. Mark snapped in a low voice. Lila looked stunned. What are you talking about? You said you were ending this. I never said that, he hissed. You promised me. Their voices grew louder, sharper, accusations laced with half-truths, years of secrets collapsing under the weight of their own lies. And I just listened. It was beautiful in a way. The slow, crumbling demise of two people who thought they were clever, who thought I was too broken to see through them. When they finally realized I had returned, standing in the doorway, watching, they both went quiet. I just wanted to say thank you, I said calmly, for reminding me why I stopped trusting people. Lila opened her mouth to speak, but I held up a hand. You don't have to explain. I already know everything. Mark stepped forward. This isn't what it looks like. I looked at him, eyes hollow. That's the problem. It's exactly what it looks like. Neither of them spoke after that. They left in silence, separate cars, separate directions, but the damage was done. And me? I felt lighter. Not healed, not whole, but something close. Because for the first time in years, the silence in my house didn't feel empty. It felt earned. And I wasn't done yet. The weeks that followed were the quietest my life had ever been, but it wasn't the kind of quiet that comes from peace. It was more like the quiet before a storm, unnerving, tense, heavy with unfinished business. Lila didn't call. Mark didn't text. Whatever excuses they'd told themselves, whatever illusions they had clung to, were gone now. The masks were off. And beneath them, I don't think either of them liked what they saw. I should have felt triumphant. After all, I got what I wanted. I dismantled their lies brick by brick and left them standing in the ruins. But revenge is a funny thing. It doesn't heal, it distracts, it consumes. And when the fire burns out, you're left in the ashes, wondering what part of yourself turned to smoke. Some nights, I still found myself reaching for my phone to text Emma. My fingers hovered over her name instinctively, like she was still on the other end waiting to listen, to laugh, to anchor me. But there was only silence. That's the thing about grief. It doesn't leave when the people who wronged you get what's coming. It just finds quieter ways to haunt you. I started sorting through Emma's old things. I hadn't been able to touch her closet since the day she died. Her scent still clung to certain fabrics. Her handwriting in the margins of old notebooks still caught me off guard. There were lists, baby names we'd never get to use, notes to herself about nursery paint colors. One list had 2 names circled with a heart between them. Miles and Ella. I sat there on the floor for hours just staring at that page. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself cry. Not the angry, bitter kind of tears I'd known for the past year, but the aching kind. The missing her so much it hurts kind. I realized something then. I had spent so much time trying to punish those who broke me, I never gave myself permission to grieve the way I needed to. I had buried my love for Emma beneath layers of bitterness, resentment, and revenge. But she deserved better than that. We both did. Still, there were things that needed finishing. I hadn't spoken to Emma's former boss since the accident. He'd gone quiet after the investigation wrapped up. The company settled with me out of court, hush money dressed up as compensation. It was supposed to make everything go away, but it didn't. Not for me. And now, with a clearer mind and a sharpened sense of purpose, I revisited that chapter. I scheduled a meeting under a different name, used my legal connections to get a foot in the door. When I walked into the office, I saw him sitting at his desk. Same smug expression, same dismissive body language. But when he looked up and saw me, his face shifted. That flicker of recognition was all I needed. "You remember me?" I asked, voice calm. He stood up slowly. "Of course, Mr. Reynolds. I didn't know you were coming in." "I'm not here to reopen a case," I interrupted. "I'm here to ask you one question." He narrowed his eyes, unsure. "All right. What was it worth to you?" I asked. He blinked. "Excuse me?" "My wife? My child? The shortcuts you took, the safety reports you ignored, the corners you cut. What was it worth? What did you gain from putting her in that building without telling her it wasn't cleared for occupancy?" His face flushed. "I can't. This isn't the proper forum for—" I stepped forward, lowering my voice. "You don't have to answer. Just know this. I don't want your money. I don't want your apology. I just want you to remember. Every single time you close your eyes, I want you to see her face. Every time your company cuts another corner, I want you to wonder if someone like me is watching. Waiting." He didn't speak. He didn't have to. The silence said it all. I left without another word. I wasn't looking for closure. I was giving him a warning. People like him only understand consequences when they feel eyes on them. And now, he would. Back home, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, the one Lila once helped me set with candles and wine. It felt like a different life, a different man. There was a letter on the table, no return address, just my name in Lila's handwriting. I opened it slowly, unsure what to expect. Inside, the note was brief. "I'm sorry for everything. I never meant to fall for him. I never meant to betray you, but I did both. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I just hope one day you'll find something that brings you peace. And maybe when you do, you'll think of me and not hate me completely." I folded the letter and set it aside. She was right. I didn't hate her. Not anymore. The anger had burned out. What remained was something quieter, sadder, a sense of finality. Mark never reached out again. I didn't expect him to. Maybe he moved away. Maybe he stayed and pretended nothing ever happened. Either way, he was gone. And good riddance. As for me, I started running again. Not away from things, but towards something new. Something that didn't have a name yet. I began volunteering at a local support group, people who'd lost spouses, children, families. The stories I heard there, some darker than mine, some more hopeful, reminded me that pain doesn't make you special. It makes you human. One evening, a woman at the group shared something that stuck with me. Grief, she said, is just love with nowhere to go. And maybe that's what I had been doing this whole time, trying to find somewhere to put all that love. I had placed it in anger, in revenge, in empty gestures. But now, maybe it was time to place it in something more honest. I started writing letters to Emma, not to send, just to speak. I told her about the sky that day, about the quiet at night, about the little things I noticed, like how spring always brings out the bluebirds she used to adore. And slowly, piece by piece, I began to feel her not as a loss, but as a presence again. She wasn't gone, not entirely. She lived in the way I held doors open for strangers, in the way I still caught myself humming her favorite song while folding laundry. She lived in the kindness I tried to show others, in the stillness I was finally learning to accept. I don't know what comes next. I don't pretend to have it all figured out. But I do know this. Pain changes you. It breaks you open, redefines you, but it doesn't have to destroy you. I once believed my life had ended the day Emma died, and maybe in a way it had. But now I understand something else. Sometimes the end of one story is just the beginning of another. And this time I get to write it without lies, without shadows, just me, and the memory of a love that once was, and maybe someday a new one that could be.